10 pickle brands you should question, and 2 cleaner jars. At Culinary Cipher, we don't follow food marketing, we verify it. The truth is always on the label. Decode your plate. Pickles seem like the ultimate honest food. Cucumbers, salt, vinegar, some dill, a jar. Right? Mostly. But flip a lot of pickle jars over and you'll find artificial dye, a thickener that has nothing to do with pickling, and a list longer than the recipe your grandmother used. Here's what we're questioning. 1. Artificial color, especially yellow 5, tartrazine, added to make pickles look a brighter, more appetizing green or yellow even though good pickles don't need it. 2. Additives that aren't part of traditional pickling, polysorbate 80, calcium chloride for crunch, and preservatives like sodium benzoate and potassium sorbate. 3. The big one. Vinegar-brined versus naturally fermented, because almost everything on the shelf is the quick vinegar kind, which means none of the live culture benefits people associate with real pickles. None of this is dangerous. It's just worth questioning when the food is supposed to be this simple. Today we're questioning 10 popular pickle brands and styles, looking at what's actually floating in that brine, and finishing with 2 cleaner jars. This one's quick and a little fun, because pickles are about as simple as food gets, which makes the additives stand out even more. Let the decoding begin. Number 1. The classic dill spears and halves from the major shelf brands. Most are vinegar pickles, fine and tasty, but question the color line. Many add yellow 5 to standardize that green. The cucumbers don't need dye to be pickles. It's there for your eyes at the shelf. Number 2. Bread and butter and sweet pickles. The sweet styles add a lot of sugar or high fructose corn syrup, plus often turmeric or yellow 5 for color. Question whether your vegetable side is carrying candy-level sugar in the brine. Number 3. Kosher dill pickles. Here's a fun one to question. Kosher dill doesn't mean kosher certified. It refers to the New York Jewish deli style of adding garlic to the brine. It's a flavor description, not a certification. Worth knowing what the word on the jar actually promises. Number 4. Hamburger dill chips with added color and firming agents. The thin chips are often where calcium chloride, for snap, and dye show up most, because the brand wants uniform, crunchy, bright chips. Question the firmness and color additives if you want a simpler jar. Number 5. Pickles with polysorbate 80. This emulsifier turns up in some pickle and relish products and has nothing to do with traditional pickling. It's a manufacturing aid, not a pickle ingredient. If you spot it, that's a fair thing to question. Number 6. No refrigeration needed, shelf-stable jars generally. Shelf stability at room temperature for a year usually means a heavier reliance on vinegar acidity plus preservatives. Totally safe, but question whether you'd prefer a refrigerated, fresher-tasting option with a shorter list. Number 7. Store brand and value pickles. The cheapest jars often lean hardest on dye and preservatives to look and last premium on a budget. Cheap doesn't mean simpler here. Question and read the back. Number 8. Flavored and spicy novelty pickles. Hot, fire, and specialty flavors stack added flavorings, colors, and sometimes sweeteners on top of the brine. Fun, but they're the most additive-heavy end of the shelf. Question if you assumed just spicy cucumbers. Number 9. Sweet relish and pickle relish. Relish is where sugar, dye, often yellow 5 and blue 1 combined for that green, and thickeners concentrate. A spoonful on a hot dog is carrying more additives than the whole pickle it came from. Question the relish specifically. Number 10. All-natural labeled pickles that still list additives. Natural is loosely regulated, so a jar can say it while still carrying preservatives or color. Don't let the front word end the investigation. Question it against the back panel. Before we keep going, think about what we've uncovered already. None of this required memorizing complicated ingredients. We simply turn the jar around and let the label tell the story. That's what Culinary Cipher is all about. Helping families separate tradition from marketing, one ingredient list at a time. Because the truth is always on the label. Decode your plate. Now let's talk about the difference that actually matters. Fermented versus vinegar pickles. Vinegar pickles are a perfectly good food. They're low calorie, they taste great, and the additives here are legal and minor. The 2 things genuinely worth caring about are artificial dye, which you can easily skip since it does nothing, and the fermented versus vinegar distinction, which matters only if you specifically want pickles for gut health, live culture reasons. in which case the shelf-stable vinegar kind won't deliver that. Everything else is preference. So question, but don't panic. Quick tips. Scan the ingredients for yellow 5 or artificial color. Easy to avoid. If you want true fermented pickles with live cultures, look for the word fermented. Find them in the refrigerated section, not the shelf. And check that the brine is salt-based rather than primarily vinegar. The best simple pickle ingredient list is basically cucumbers, water, salt, vinegar, dill, garlic, and spices, and stops there. Now let's go a little deeper on the one distinction that actually changes what you're buying, because most people get this wrong. There are two completely different ways to make a pickle, and they produce two completely different foods that happen to share a name. The first way is fermentation. You put cucumbers in a salt brine, you wait, and naturally occurring bacteria slowly turn the sugars into lactic acid. That acid is what makes the pickle sour, and it's the same process that makes real sauerkraut, kimchi, and traditional sourdough. The payoff is live cultures and a deep, layered, slightly funky flavor. The second way is the fast way. You pour hot vinegar over cucumbers, seal the jar, and the acidity of the vinegar does all the souring in hours instead of weeks. That's how the overwhelming majority of shelf-stable supermarket pickles are made. They're fine, they're tasty, but there is nothing alive in them, because the heat and the vinegar guarantee that. So when a shelf-stable jar puts the word probiotic or gut-friendly anywhere near the label, be skeptical. If it's sitting unrefrigerated and it was heat processed, those cultures are not surviving in any meaningful way. Real live culture pickles almost always live in the cold case, and they'll usually say fermented and refrigerate after opening, because they were never shelf-stable to begin with. The second thing worth understanding is sodium, because pickles are genuinely a high-sodium food, and that's not a marketing trick, it's how preservation works. Salt is doing a real job in that brine. A single spear can carry a couple 100 milligrams of sodium, and a few of them add up fast. This doesn't make pickles bad. For most people, they're a low-calorie, satisfying snack, and the sodium is easy to budget around. But if you're someone watching blood pressure or sodium for medical reasons, this is the actual thing to pay attention to, far more than the dye or the brand. Reduced sodium versions exist, and they're a legitimate option, though they sometimes lean harder on other flavorings to compensate. Read the milligrams, not the front of the jar. And here's the practical move that makes this whole category easy. You can make refrigerator pickles at home in about 10 minutes, and they're genuinely better than most jars you'll buy. Slice cucumbers, pack them in a clean jar with garlic, fresh dill, and a few peppercorns. Then pour over a simple brine of equal parts water and vinegar with a tablespoon or two of salt and a little sugar dissolved in. Seal it, refrigerate it, and in a day you have crisp, clean pickles with an ingredient list you wrote yourself. No dye, no mystery firming agents. Exactly the garlic and spice level you like. They keep for a couple of weeks in the fridge. If you want the live culture fermented kind, you skip the vinegar entirely and just use a salt water brine left on the counter for several days, tasting as you go. Either way, you've taken the entire "which brand can I trust?" question off the table. Now, 2 cleaner jars. First, naturally fermented refrigerated pickles like Bubby's. These are made the old way. Salt brine, fermentation, no vinegar first shortcut, no artificial color, which gives you live cultures and a short, honest ingredient list. They live in the refrigerated section and taste noticeably more complex than shelf pickles. If you ever wanted real deli pickle, this is the category. Second, Grillo's pickles and similar fresh, refrigerated, shortlist dills. Grillo's uses a simple, fresh ingredient list with no dye and no long preservative chain, sold cold for a crisp, clean taste. Even if it's vinegar style rather than fully fermented, the label is clean and the dye is gone. Many store brands now offer a refrigerated, fresh pickle in the same spirit. Check the cold case. Here's the pickle aisle rule. Skip the unnecessary artificial dyes whenever you can. If you're looking for live cultures, buy refrigerated fermented pickles, not shelf-stable vinegar pickles. And remember that simple ingredients usually make the best pickles. No fear, no food guilt. Just understanding what you're buying before it goes into the cart. Because once you know how to read the label, marketing has a much harder time fooling you. At Culinary Cipher, we don't just read labels, we decode them. Every ingredient tells a story. The truth is always on the label. Decode your plate. Now go grab the pickle jar sitting in your refrigerator. Do you see yellow 5? Or did you discover your pickles are just cucumbers, spices, and brine? Let me know in the comments whether your pickles are actually green or just dyed to look that way.